For over 2 years, I have loved driving and exploring in my Toyota 4Runner with factory wheels with stock-sized all-terrain tires. But the time has come for a change and to go bigger. Okay, just a little bit bigger. Today, I'm introducing you all to the new wheel and tire setup for my 5th Gen 4Runner. I'll explain to you all why I went with this setup, but first, let's jump back 1 week to the magical new wheel and tire day. The wheels I'm going with are Salta XRs from American Expedition Vehicles. I've been making videos about AEV products and events for the past 3 years, and they kindly sent me these wheels as a thank you for my past work. I'll be covering all the Salta XR technical aspects soon, but first, we need to get to Discount Tire. You know this is a cool store if the manager's rig is that. Again, not sponsored by any of these companies. I'm just a huge fan. I've had nothing but awesome service from Discount Tire here in Yakima, Washington for years now. I've bought tires here for the Bug, for my Tacoma, for my 4Runner, and for a trailer. And this is actually the second round of tires for the 4Runner, so awesome store. Could not recommend it anymore. Awesome people, awesome managers, awesome products, and really good prices, so good stuff. Whenever you modify a vehicle, it's always a possibility that issues could arise. This was the case with securing the spare tire underneath the vehicle and some mild rubbing in the front. Luckily, both problems had easy fixes. For the spare tire, the AEV's center hole isn't large enough to pass the tire hanger bracket through. I solved this by adding in line a high-strength snap hook. Make sure the working load limit well exceeds the weight of the wheel and the tire if you do this also. She rubs! So there's definitely a little bit of rubbing going on. So this is gonna be a really easy trim though. The 275/70/17 tires cause rubbing in the front corner of the bumper cover. I used the existing body lines of the bumper to mark a simple straight cut from this point on the bumper down to the bottom. Besides striking the line, the painter's tape also protects the finish. I trimmed the plastic with a pneumatic air saw, cleaned up the cut with a sander, and then slightly modified the wheel well liner to push it in a bit. Looks like I did nothing at all, which in this case is a huge success. Here's how much we cut off of each side, just so you can kind of see the general shape. On the passenger side, I also needed to trim a little bit off of the wheel well liner. At full lock on the passenger side, we're looking at about 1 inch of space. My 4Runner is running an Eibach Stage 2R suspension with a 2-inch lift in the front. For more information on my suspension, check out the videos linked in the description. Let's check in with Nate Ham from AEV, who helped kind of set this whole thing up, and he's gonna give us the rundown on these wheels and why they're so awesome. All right, we are here at Nate Ham's shop. So Nate, tell us about these wheels in general, and kind of what AEV does to make these a good option and better than some others.
Yeah, so these wheels are a 3G6 cast aluminum wheel that's T6 hardened. They meet SAE J2530 specifications, and we finish them off with a high quality OEM paint to them. These wheels are not just made for Toyotas, we also have those for the Jeep Wranglers and also the Chevy Colorados. So you want to have a wheel that's specific for your vehicle. Yeah. We make them hub-centric for the specific vehicle with appropriate backspacing. But when you go to a larger tire size, especially tire width, a lot of times you need a wider rim, so you don't have that tire be crowned at all. Right.
Let's talk about the differences in the factory TRD off-road wheel. The regular wheel is 7.5 inches wide. This new one is 8.5, and the offset for the original wheel is 15 millimeters positive, and this one is 5 millimeters. So why is that? Explain yourself.
Well, it's easier to explain it on a wheel that's not on a vehicle.
Sure.
So this is where you can talk about the center line of the vehicle, or of the wheel, to show what zero offset is and what plus and minus, and also what backspacing is.
Cool. Let's take a closer look at it.
Sure.
Professor Nate, explain offset and diameters and backspacing and so forth.
Yes, so this is our Crestone wheel. This is our wheel that we offer in both bead lock, protection ring, or run it with no ring at all.
Gotcha.
So one of the things we got to talk about is wheel width and also backspacing and offset. These are all things that go hand in hand.
Sure.
One of the things you want to do is when you get, let's say, a wider set of tires, you might need a wider set of wheels. The first thing we're going to talk about is offset. Offset's pretty easy to remember. That zero offset means it's dead center of the wheel. So this is evenly dead center. It would be a zero offset.
Gotcha.
Now when we go to a positive offset, that line moves closer to the face of the wheel. So this wheel would actually stick in further to the vehicle with, let's say, a plus 25 millimeter offset. If it was a negative offset, that line will be further away. So this wheel would stick out further from the vehicle. So this would be a negative, we'll say 38. Another thing you gotta remember too is you wanna make sure you have a correct back spacing of the wheel for all your suspension components.
Right, because you can rub on the upper control arm that's a pretty common issue.
Because if your wheel widths are different than what we'll say you have the same offset, but your wheel widths are different, you're gonna have different back spacing.
I see.
If this wheel changed at all, let's say this wheel's not an 8-inch, but now it's a 10-inch wide wheel, but we have the same offset, this back spacing will change. So this plus 25 millimeter offset would change to a 6-inch back spacing.
I see.
So that's how the back spacing and the offset go hand in hand.
So because there's a less positive offset on this wheel might be the reason why I had to trim the front bumper a little bit, because it's sticking, it's less tucked in because it's wider. It has to be less tucked in, otherwise it would hit the upper control arm.
Because the wheel is not only just wider,
right,
but also sticks out a little further because of that wider wheel.
Gotcha.
Because you're running a wider tire.
Because you did this to yourself.
Yeah, of course.
Nice. Well, that makes perfect sense. Any specifics for my Salta XRs that you want to point out?
So these Salta XRs are offered in both matte black and onyx. This finish is onyx.
Cool.
We offer these with the valve stem protection, just like every other of our wheels.
Nice.
These wheels are made in Italy and have a lifetime structural warranty.
Cool. Well, I'll try not to break them and have you have to give me a new one.
If you do, just give me a call and we'll take care of you.
Awesome, man. Does adding 275 70R17s make your speedometer inaccurate? So let's do some testing. First, I'm gonna set this to 35 miles per hour. We've got Waze with GPS recording over here. Going 35 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour, according to GPS as well. So looks like we are just fine. Let's merge on to the highway and see if it's accurate at 60. We are at 60 miles per hour, and we are 60 miles per hour also on GPS. It's police. Second, we went down to 59, back up to 60, back up to 60. Yeah, we are accurate. So 275s on a 4Runner, it's not gonna throw you off. It's off-road testing time. Let's see how these new wheels and tires perform, and also if we have any rubbing issues. I'm trying to actually aim for the ruts, the rocks. I don't know if it's just mental, but I feel like I can tell that the wheels and tires are heavier than they used to be, because I feel, I think, when it flexes down a little bit, I think it's kind of dropping a little faster than it used to. Again, that might be just in my head, but I don't think it is. But I did not feel rubbing at all in the front or the rear during that once. So long story short, on-road, off-road in terms of rubbing, our cut did the job. It has not touched in the weeks since after doing that trim. And dare I say it, I've showed a couple people like, hey, can you tell that I did anything to this? And they're like, no. So awesome. But we are still touching right here on the mud flap where it kind of jets out. I've talked to Nate about this, and we kind of like, well, maybe we could melt it and try to reform it a little bit. Since this is so minor, I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. We've talked about the wheels in detail, so now it's time to talk in detail about tires. Why did I go with Falken Wildpeak AT3Ws in the 275 70R17 size? First off, let's talk about size. I wanted to go bigger. We all want to go bigger. I always want more ground clearance. Also, with this setup now, I have over 12 inches of ground clearance on a pretty mild lift on a 4Runner. So that is like big off-road rig territory. So it's awesome. I absolutely love it. That's number one, wanted to go bigger, but I didn't want to go so big that I'd have some issues. Issue number one is I didn't want to have to re-gear the 4Runner to not have a large performance hit in terms of just, highway speeds, that sort of thing, and also gas mileage, because this vehicle is our main road trip vehicle for the family. If we go on a long trip, we're usually going in this, so gas mileage is a thing. And beyond that, I didn't want to have to go with a tire that required substantial cutting. Obviously, we've already had to do some cutting. We might have to remove mud flaps later, but if you do 285s, unless you do a lot of trickery with upper control arms and other things like that, you almost always need to do the body mount chop, which is behind the mud flap here. Some additional specs for you guys. The stock 265s are 31.6 inches in diameter,
And we always, of course, round this up to calling those 32s. And these 275s are 32.2 inches in diameter, so 3/5 of an inch larger than 265s. So not a full 1.1 inches larger like you'd get with 285s, but you know, again, we're kind of like cutting it right in the middle. So that's my reasoning behind size. Let's talk about the brand and model of tire we have here. So I've been talking up BF Goodrich KO2s for years now. I had them on the 4Runner. I have them currently on my Tacoma. Those tires are great. I mean, all around, city driving, off-road, in the snow, they're awesome. But another tire that has almost the exact same reputation, if not slightly better, especially in the snow, so I've heard, are the Falken Wildpeak AT3Ws. Obviously, 3-peak snow rated, which is really, really important to me because I want to run these tires year round. The issue with going with KO2s in the 275 size is they do not offer it as a C-load tire like these. In fact, most companies only offer 275s in an E-load rating instead of C-load. Now, again, there's a lot of technical differences between E-load and C-load. The sidewall ply thickness, also weight. Some of you might disagree with me on this one, but I'll try to explain my reasoning because a lot of people run E-load and recommend it for 4Runners. But from everything I have heard and experienced in the past like 5 years, E-load kind of denotes that you're going with a heavier, full-size truck, larger rig, heavier rig. And unless you're doing like hardcore rock crawling with like sharp rocks all the time, it's more important to me that the tires be light, that they flex nicely when you air them down, and that they ride nicely on the highway. If you go all the way back to 2019, in the first truck video that my buddy Chris and I did together, we installed 275 E-load tires on his Colorado. Chris loved how the tires looked and they had excellent grip, but Chris told me many times that the truck was pretty crappy on the highway. And this might also be up for debate, but I have seen E-load rated tires do pretty terrible if you drive on the sand. While off-roading in the sand dunes of Oregon with a bunch of AEV folks, there was an awesome dude with a 4Runner on E-load tires. Shout out to Josh Marks, you can see his truck on Instagram. He aired down like everyone else, but got stuck many times. He's since switched to Falken Wildpeaks that are C-load rated as well. So that and advice from just a lot of other professionals is why Chris and I both have gone with only C-load rated tires on all our trucks. Something else awesome has happened in the week since getting the new wheels and tires, and that is I was able to sell the original set of wheels and tires online for $950. Because the KO2s last so long, they were not even halfway through their tread life, and because it had sensors and everything like that, able to sell it to a guy. He was thrilled, I was thrilled, and that covers over half the cost of the new tires from Discount Tire, including their warranty. So, not too shabby. So my friends, what do you think of my choices? Would you have done what I did? Would you have gone bigger, perhaps stayed stock? Let me and everyone else know down in the comments. Obviously, this is just the beginning. We need to test these things throughout the year in mud, in rain, in snow, and I love to do long-term updates on the modifications I do on the channel. You've seen me update you all on the suspension after over a year, and I can do the same thing on tires. So if you want to see that, subscribe, turn on notifications, and until next time, God bless all of you, and don't forget to do it yourself.